Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ikemji, and if you're new to this channel, you're highly welcome. So in today's tutorial, we're learning how to make this shift dress with bell sleeve and side pockets. So if you're yet to subscribe, please do subscribe, like and share this video. So let's get started. To begin, here are the materials needed. We have our tape, our scissors, chalk, ruler, and we have our 3 yards of designed crepe. So to begin now, I will simply place my material on fold into 4 times, as you can see, because here I'm going to be cutting my front and back piece simultaneously. So next I'm going to be doing now is to roll out a line, which is going to be my starting point, because it's from here I'm going to map out all my horizontal lines. So I'm going to start by placing my tape at the starting point there and map out my chest line. So I'm just going to connect that all through, and then next part I'm going to do is to also take my bust line measurement, which is 10 inches, and I'm also going to mark that all through this dress. And then for the waistline, my waist is actually 16, so I'm equally going to mark that as well. And then down to my hip line is actually 25 inches, although it differs in every individual. So for you to get your hip line, you just have to measure from your shoulder to the hip line, because some persons can actually have low hips, some persons can have high hips. So whatever you get as your hip line after measurement is what you are going to use. So for me here, I'm going to be working with 25 inches based on my size, and I'm just going to mark that all through this dress. Then for the full length of this dress, I'll be working with 39 inches. Sorry that my camera wasn't able to capture that side. So for 39 inches, I'm going to be adding 2 extra inch for my folding, because I would like my folding to be big. Then I'm just going to connect all the lines that I've already dotted out. So next I'll be doing now is to insert my horizontal measurement, starting from my shoulder, and my shoulder is actually 16 divided by 2. I'm going to have 8, so I'm just going to mark that here. And then on the chest line, I'm going to also replicate that 8 inches, so I'll just equally mark that as well. And I'll simply connect those dots with a straight line. And then for my bust, my bust is actually 36 divided by 4. I'm going to have 9, and I'll mark that here, plus 1 inch for ease, which I will mark that as well. And then I'll go ahead and mark my allowance, which is 1.5. So I'm just going to replicate this measurement at my chest line now. And then next I'll go over is my waist, and my waist is actually 28 divided by 4. I'm going to have 7, so I'm just going to mark 7 there, plus 1 inch for ease, which I'll mark there, and then 1.5 for my sewing allowance. And then over to my hip line, my hip is actually 36 divided by 4. I'm going to have 9 inch, which I'll mark there, plus 1 inch for ease, and then 1.5 for my sewing allowance. And then down to the full length of this dress, the full length is actually 39 inch, 39 plus 2 inch for sewing allowance, like I explained. So on the full length of this dress now, I'm going to be working my hip measurement, which is actually 9 inches, and I'll mark that here, and I'll be adding 2 inches for my ease and not 1 the way I did for others. I'll be marking 2 inches because I really want it to have that A line, and then I'll go ahead and mark my 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance, and I'll just connect those dots as you see me do so now. So next I'll be doing now is to actually cut my neckline. I remember that the back and the front here are together because I want to cut it simultaneously. So for the neck now, for both the front and the back, I'm going to be using a width of 2.5. Then for the depth now, this depth is actually for the back alone, which I'll be going with 2 inches. So I'm just going to connect that, and after connecting the whole dots together, I'm just going to draw my curve line as well. Then at the shoulder line, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch because I want to give my neck a slopey effect. So I'm just going to mark that here, and I'm simply going to connect that to this point as you see me do so. So I'll take my tape now and place it at this point and measure between there to there, which is 7, and I'm just going to divide by 2. So whatever I get, which is the midpoint, I'm just going to mark that here, and I got 3.5. So at this point here, I'm just going to go up by 1 inch, and I'm just going to mark that there. And then next I will do is to connect these three lines, that's this three dots here, with a curved line as you see me do so. And this is what we basically have for the back armhole. And then for the front, I'm just going to go in by 1/2 inch from this middle point, and I'm just going to mark that here. And then I'm going to connect it like this down to the other side with a curved line. You can actually use your French curve to actually do that, or you can use your freehand. So right now this new line is the armhole for the front. So the next thing I did is to actually cut out what I need. As you can see, I'm doing that carefully. And remember that we are cutting the front and the back together, which are having two different armhole, and that is why I cut out the first armhole that I drafted on this dress, leaving the other one behind because that one is for the front piece. So I'm actually cutting that now as you are seeing me do so, and down to the remaining part of this dress. So the next I'm going to be doing now is to actually notch out my waist point, because it is at this point that I'm going to be placing my pocket. It's important that you notch out those areas so that it will be easier for you when placing your pockets. The next I'll be doing now is to remove the back piece after cutting what I need, and I will appropriately place my front piece well. And then remember that we actually removed 2 inches away from this when we're cutting the back. So I'm just going to place my tape starting from that 2 inches, and I'm just going to mark the position that I need for my neck depth, which is actually 7 inches, which represents the neck depth for my front. And I'm just going to connect the shoulder point to this very new point that I marked there with a slanted line as you see me do so. So the next I'll be doing now is to cut out this part, and also for the armhole for the front I'll cut it as well. So to turn the neck of this dress now, you either use bias or facing, but for this video I'm going to be using facing to actually turn the neck. And here, this is what I have after using facing method to actually turn my neck for both the front and the back. Then I also went ahead to actually fold the down part of this dress. As you can see, I gave it a big folding here, which is actually neat and good. So next I'll do is actually cut out the pockets that I'll be needing for this dress. As you can see, I've already gone ahead to cut out this blocked fob shape at a length of 12 inches to 8 width. So here I have a length of 12 inches, and then the width is going to be 8 inches. So right now I'll go ahead and place my pocket on my dress. And in order to do that, I'm going to place my front piece like this, and then take one of the piece of my pocket and ensure that their right side are facing each other, and also make sure that the 12 inches length is actually facing the side of your dress and not the 8 inches parts. So before I place my pocket, I will simply go up by 1 inch from that notched area that I did there at the waist, which is very important. So I'm going to begin by placing my pocket from this point that I just marked here, and I'm going to simply place it there. But I'm not going to place it at the beginning of the dress, rather I'm just going to come in by 0.5 inches, and I'm going to use my pin to actually support them down throughout the dress. And this is simply what I'm going to have. So I'll be doing the same thing for the other side of the front piece. As you can see, I'm just using my pin now to hold them down, and then I'm also going to do it to the back side of the dress, and I'm just using my pin to secure the pockets and the dress and onto the other side before I take them to the machine to sew. So this is basically what we are going to have after we have sewn our pockets to the dress with our machine. So next I will do now is to actually take my measurements at my front piece, and what I'm simply going to do is to fold in my pockets inside so it can be this way, then fold my front piece like this, and then I'll begin to take in my measurements starting from my waist, which is actually 7 plus 1 inch for ease, and I'm just going to mark that right there. And then for the bust, which is actually 36 divided by 4, I have 9 plus 1 inch for my ease, that's actually 10. So I'm just going to mark that here, and I'll replicate it to my chest line. And then for my hip, I have 36 divided by 4, which is actually 9 plus 1 inch for my ease. I'm just going to mark it, that's 10. So I'm going to mark it right there. And for the down part of the dress, remember that I'm going to replicate the hip measurement at the down area, which is 9 plus 2 inches for my ease allowance. Remember that I am actually adding 2 here and not 1, so that the A line can actually show well. So I'm just going to mark that here, and I'll simply connect them with a straight line. So next I'm going to do is to replicate this measurement at the other side of the dress, which I have actually done as you see in this video. So after this, I'm just going to keep this aside so I can cut my sleeve. So what I simply did was to actually place my dress on fold like this, and then I'm going to measure out the length that I'm going to be working with. So for my length of sleeve now, I'm going to be going with 27 inches because I really want it to actually be long. So I'm just going to mark that there, and I'll mark it throughout. So from this line now, I'm just going to go down by 4.5 so I can get my bicep line. So I'm just going to mark that right there and connect it throughout this dress. Then next I'm going to do is just to roll, and from this point that is facing me, I'm just going to go in by 4.5, and I will equally mark it at that point. So from this new point that I've marked here, I'm simply going to place my tape there down to my bicep line and measure it. Then I'm going to get the middle point, and then whatever I get, I'm simply going to mark that there on my dress, as you can see me do in this video. So what next I'm going to be doing now is to measure the circumference of my armhole, divide it by 2, and whatever I get, I'm just going to mark it on my bicep line. And then next I'm going to do is to actually connect these 3 dots together from here to this point and onto that side with a straight line. So the next thing I'm going to do after that is to actually measure from this point to this point, and I'm just going to divide it by 2, and then whatever I get at the midpoint, I'm just going to mark it here for this very place. And then on this point here, I'm going to come up by 0.5 inch here, and I'll just mark that. And so I'll leave that aside, and I'm going to do that to the other 2 points like I'm doing in this video. I will then divide it by 2. Whatever I get at the midpoint, I'm just going to mark that here. And from this point that I've marked here, I'm going to come down by 0.5 inch. Now remember that we went up by 0.5, but in this case we are going to go down by 0.5. So what I'm going to simply do next is to connect these lines together with as an inverted S. So after doing that now, I'm just going to connect that to the sleeve length with my ruler, and then I'm simply going to cut it away. So remember to always notch the midpoint of your sleeve. I'll go ahead now and cut the other sleeve the same way. So next I'm going to do now, before adding my sleeve to my dress, I will simply take the back piece of my dress and place it on my front piece so that I can go ahead and join both shoulders together before adding my sleeve, just the way you see me do in this video. So right now, as you can see, I've gone ahead to join the shoulders of both front and back piece. So next I'm going to join my sleeve to the dress, and I've also gone ahead to fold the down part of my sleeve. So in order to join the sleeve to the dress, I'll simply open up my dress this way, and I will get the midpoint of my sleeve, ensuring that the midpoint of my sleeve is also connected to the midpoint of my dress, and I'll just use pin to actually secure them down. And that's what I'm going to do throughout, as you see me in this video. Always ensure that the right side of the sleeve is actually facing the right side of the dress before you take them to the machine and sew. And I'll simply do the same thing to the other side. So right now, as you can see, I've already gone ahead to attach the sleeve to the dress. So the next I'm going to do now is to actually join the sides of my dress together. But to do that now, I'm going to ensure that my pockets are facing outside like this, so that I can simply go ahead and join all sides of the dress together. This was the reason why I said you should actually mark your measurements before attaching your sleeve, so that it can be easy for you to sew when you want to join your dress. So I'll just go ahead now and align my back and front piece together and use pin to actually secure them. So when joining the sides together, I'll begin from my sleeve, and I'm just going to be sewing there by 1/2 inch, and while going I'll be entering inside so that I can connect with this white lines that I've marked. And then while sewing, ensure to actually stop at this point that I've marked here. which is the waistline. That was the reason I notched it. So I'm just going to end my stitch here, and then I'll be going inside, that's the by pocket area, by 1 inch. So I'm just going to measure that right now. So I'm just going to sew this part 1 inch, and I'm going to come down sewing it by ½ inch, and down to the other part still by ½ inch, and I'm just going to sew it and stitch it in the other next white line that I've marked for the dress. And then at this point here, remember that I actually stitched here, so I'm just going to measure out 6 inches from that point down here, because this is the part that I'm not going to sew, where my hand can actually pass through. So these 6 inches that I marked here that I won't be sewing is the part where my hand will pass through, although it differs in every individual. Some person's own can be 7 depending on how big the person's hand is. So right now I'm going to continue my stitch from that point down to the dress, and I'm just going to use my pin now to secure the remaining part of my dress before taking it to the machine to sew. And I'll equally replicate this process to the other side of the dress to sew. So as you can see, this is the outcome of what you're going to have after joining the sides together. As you can see, it's actually beautiful and nice. So if you find this video helpful, please do subscribe, like, share this video, and also turn the notification bell to get notified anytime I upload a new video. Thank you and bye.